Hi, I'm Justin Riley. Today on Wisconsin Doctors, it's time to start talking about vaccinations and immunizations again. August is National Immunizations Awareness Month, and we're going to be talking about several different types of specific immunizations, including influenza, shingles, and human papillomavirus. You'll want to stay tuned for that one because there's some new and interesting information there. And I'm joined by a great team of folks, including Dr. Leon Redant, Craig Griffiths, and Nick Hewitt. It's all coming up right here on Wisconsin Doctor, so stay right here. Welcome back to Wisconsin Doctors. We are here at Bluff Medical Center all week learning about immunizations and vaccinations. And I've got a great team of specialists joining me now today. Dr. Leon Redant, Craig Griffiths, and Nick Hewitt. Welcome, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us here. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Redant, I want to start with you. August is National Immunization Awareness Month. I think most people are pretty familiar with what immunizations or vaccinations are, but can you just give a quick overview of what they are, what they do, and why people should be vaccinated?
Yes. Most vaccines are either killed virus, attenuated viruses, which means a virus that has been altered to where it is less likely to cause disease. There are killed bacteria, parts of bacteria, the polysaccharide capsule that's around some bacteria are used for immunizations. So that basically is it.
Sure, yeah. And I've always been curious to know, I mean, without getting too technical, can you share how exactly do they get the viruses to be in the altered state or dead state? You know, I mean, how do they go in and kill the viruses or the bacteria and have it ready for immunization?
Well, viruses can be killed either with heat or chemicals. There are a variety of chemicals. To attenuate them is a whole process of research, basically altering the phenotypes such that they are less virulent.
So a whole different show, in other words, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yes.
So, Craig, I want to turn to you. Vaccines sometimes get some negative press. And oftentimes people, question whether they should be getting vaccines or not, especially when flu season comes around and everything. People will say, well, I don't typically get the flu, and when I do get a flu shot, I sometimes get sick anyway, so what's the point? Can you talk to us a little bit about, is there any real truth to that, and do vaccines make people sick?
Well, vaccines are medications, so you do have the risk of adverse reactions of various types. But interestingly, with vaccines, it's not common. In fact, they're probably overplayed a little too much. Some of the ones that we hear about the most, you hear about the relationship between autism and vaccines. Well, that's not been proven to be true. In fact, it's been pretty much debunked. Guillain-Barré syndrome, they talk about that in the flu vaccine, and several others for that matter. And the reality is the incidence is much higher with the actual virus itself.
Right, yeah.
One of the more common ones we hear is that I got the flu from the flu shot. Well, what people need to understand is that when we give you the vaccine, as Dr. Redant has described, we're giving you a viral particle or a virus itself with the idea of producing an immune response so that when you are exposed, you can actually fight it off. So you are, depending on how you react to those viral particles or a virus, going to develop an immune response and could conceivably get sick. So you get the viral type fever, muscle aches, joint pain, stuff like that. But it's really not anything adverse. It's what we're asking the vaccine to do. So,
and really those symptoms, I think, pale in comparison to the symptoms you would get if you got the actual influenza full blown.
It was interesting, one article that I read said that if we gave all the vaccines that we give to our children and adults at one time, the total inoculum would be less than 1/1,000,000th of an actual viral infection.
Wow.
So, the protection we get from just a small amount of viral particles against all these different viruses that we could be exposed to. So,
right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nick Hewitt, I'm going to turn to you real quick. Vaccines are often thought as being just for infants and children, but there are vaccines that adults should be getting. Can you talk to us real quick about some of those?
There are a lot of vaccines that adults still get. Thousands of adults will still die of preventable diseases if they don't keep their boosters up. And boosters usually the term you'll hear for adults then rather than a vaccine.
Right.
Whooping cough is a big one that's kind of making a comeback. Otherwise, there's always annually you get the influenza. There's the pneumococcal or the pneumonia vaccine, which is a few series you get as an adult. And there's tetanus shots are very important, especially in Wisconsin where a lot of people are recreating outside.
Sure.
It's good to be up to date on your tetanus. And there's diphtheria, there's the shingles. There are a lot of things that benefit adults if they keep up to date on their vaccines by getting their regular boosters.
Tetanus, I've heard, is something that actually can stay alive for 100 years. So if you contract tetanus, you could be like something that you picked up that's been there for 100 years. So I think it's important that we take that seriously.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, tetanus comes from the dirt, and anybody that's out there gets scratched, whether in the dirt, has a chance of getting tetanus.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to take a short break here. When we come back to Wisconsin Doctors, we'll be talking further about immunizations right here at Mile Bluff Medical Center. Stick around. Welcome back to Wisconsin Doctors. We are here at Mile Bluff Medical Center. We've been talking about vaccinations and immunizations. And let's talk specifically about influenza, because each and every year, influenza season is upon us. They always say, go get your flu shot, go get your flu shot. Dr. Redant, can you explain what is influenza and give us an idea of what exactly a vaccination would be protecting people from?
Yes, influenza is a respiratory illness, typically marked by incessant dry cough, and in the case of influenza, high fever, temps as high as 103, pronounced headache, diffuse muscle ache. It's a condition that can be most devastating in people who have an underlying issue of compromise, emphysema, asthma, people whose immune capabilities may be compromised by virtue of having underlying kidney disease or liver disease or diabetes. All of these can make the disease far more devastating.
And so the vaccine then protects them from all of those things?
That's correct, quite correct.
Yeah.
And one should say that death rates from immunization follow what's called a U-shaped curve. So deaths occur more commonly in the very young and in the very old. There's also a small blip of mortality in the mid-20s, and that corresponds to pregnant women who are also prone to quite devastating influenza disease.
So death rates from influenza. Not immunization. Death rates from influenza, folks.
I was going to cover that.
So we want to make sure that we get that clear. So Nick Hewitt, Dr. Redant talked a little bit about the people who are most vulnerable to this. I mean, are those the people that should be getting the flu vaccine, or should everybody just get it?
The short answer is everybody 6 months and older should get a flu shot. That's the best way to stop it. You're not going to get sick, you're going to get other people sick. Dr. Redant's correct, and the people who are most important to get it are anybody with any kind of lung disease or chronic disease where they're more prone to not only getting the flu, but having a lot harder time with it, potentially putting them in the hospital or worse. So those are the ones that you want to focus on the most, and anybody in healthcare for those same reasons, to protect not only the people taking care of those who are already sick, but to prevent them from being spread to anybody.
People in healthcare would be the priority, so they're not spreading them to other people, and then people who have those compromises to their immune system as well.
Yeah, those would be the top two.
Yeah, absolutely. So Craig, talk to us a little bit about the benefits, and also, are there any risks to getting the influenza vaccine?
We've talked a little bit about the risks. We talked about some side effects and things that can happen with vaccines. Influenza happens to be a very safe vaccine, even though we hear about the people that had some problem with it. About 1 in 14,000 will have what we would consider a moderate reaction, where they're going to get fevers, muscle aches, pain. As many as 1 in 6 will have a sore shoulder or wherever they got the, the injection or whatever. So, but it's actually only about 1 in a million that have serious life-threatening reactions to the vaccine. So it's very uncommon. The vaccine itself, though, can reduce illness about 50 to 60% across the population that get the vaccine. And in those who do get ill, it is helpful in reducing the severity of the illness.
Sure.
It also is very helpful in reducing hospitalizations, especially among those that have chronic illnesses and stuff like that. And it imparts immunity when administered to a pregnant mom. She can share that with her child and for about 6 months after birth. So, so there's benefits, not only to you, but to offspring and even to your community as you go out and limit, their exposure because you've limited yours. So some real good benefits and not a huge amount of risk.
I think it's good to mention too that when people say, well, I never get the flu, so I'm not going to get the flu shot, they may be just reaping the benefits of mass vaccination from other people. So we just have a couple seconds left, but I want to try to get this question in. Nick, how often does someone need to receive the influenza? I mean, this is something that's an annual thing, is that right?
Annual. There's flu vaccine changes every year, so they have a new flu vaccine every year. So annual, it should be covered by all insurances. That's part of the Affordable Care Act and Medicare.
Yeah,
it should be covered to get it every year, every season.
Every season, every flu season.
Every flu season.
Okay, we got to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears, talk a little bit about the human papilloma virus. Don't go away. There's more Wisconsin Doctors coming up right after this. Welcome back to Wisconsin Doctors. We are here at Bluff Medical Center in Mauston talking about immunizations and vaccinations. And I have a great team of specialists that we've been talking with today. Dr. Redant, I'm going to start with you. We're going to talk a little bit about HPV, or human papillomavirus. Talk to us a little bit about what this illness is, and if someone gets a vaccination, what is it protecting them from?
Well, I'm very pleased that you've chosen to highlight HPV immunizations. It is the first vaccine that is being given for purpose of preventing cancer. Human papillomavirus is passed through sexual contact. It is really important, I think, for parents to understand that the issue here is one that their children are never going to consult them about. And reading the statistics, about 10% of kids have been sexually active by the time they are freshmen in high school. The experience of becoming sexually active is as high as 70% by the time children are seniors in high school. This virus will protect people from developing abnormal pap smears and cervical cancer. It is highly effective, and we will see over time the benefit of this as more and more women and young boys are immunized.
And I want to talk about that too, because Nick, we talked a little bit before the show about how this is something that the media has traditionally and historically focused on young women. Get your HPV vaccine, but it's not just women that need to get this. Am I right?
Right. They started out with that because it's associated with cervical cancer mostly, but HPV causes other cancers.
Wow.
And warts and other complications. So it's recommended for 11 and 12-year-old boys and girls up until their early 20s to get it because it protects both protecting the boys from the other types of cancer it can cause, and then you get the population protection by vaccinating everybody. It's basically anybody that age except for pregnancy. They just haven't studied it enough. They're not really sure about giving a pregnancy yet. That data will come in time, but right now basically anybody in 11 and 12 up through 21 in males and 26 in females.
Okay. And when you're talking 11 and 12-year-olds, I mean, as a parent, that might be something if you have a 10-year-old and you think, my gosh, next year I got to start thinking about getting them this shot. I think it's important for parents to move forward with that because you just can't be too careful.
It's about cancer prevention than it is about anything social, and I think that kind of complicates it at times, but it's mostly just about the health and well-being of your child and everybody else in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, talk to us about some of the benefits. Obviously, we've learned about some of the benefits. Are there risks to this?
Well, there are risks. The unique part about this vaccine is it's relatively new as a vaccine goes to the market, and so we're still learning a lot about it. But to this point, it does show a little bit more propensity to cause some things like joint and muscle pain. But there again, as we talked about before, kind of similar to the viral syndrome where you'd be responding with an immune response and you'd get that sore muscle or a little bit of fever.
Right.
But certainly nothing real severe or that would deter us from recommending it for anybody at this point. On the other side of it, according to a statistic that I was reading earlier this week, 9 in 10 individuals by the time they reach adulthood will have been exposed to HPV.
Wow.
And, you know, it used to be that we didn't really talk much about this, but now it's pretty hard to ignore when 90% of the people that reach adulthood are going to have exposure. In many cases, it will resolve itself, but for those that it don't, the effects are devastating.
Yeah.
And so based on what we've seen so far in terms of adverse events and stuff with it, I don't think there'd be any reason to not recommend the vaccine. It's a great vaccine and certainly offers us something we have not been able to do for anybody in the past.
Right. Now, Nick had mentioned that kids starting at age 10 and 11 should get it, and that girls should have it up through age 26, boys up through age 21. How often do they need to get this vaccine? Are there booster shots? I mean, what's the regimen?
There's a series of 3 vaccines right now, isn't that what's recommended currently?
Yeah.
And it is a newer vaccine. They started out with a vaccine that had 4 serotypes in it. It's now 9. If they started out with the 4, we're trying to get them up to the 9. But it is a series of 3 vaccines, and we hope that they complete those in a 6-month period. However, for various reasons, people don't. So there's still the potential to give boosters and additional vaccinations. The other thing is to encourage that older group in that population to get them if they haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to take a short break again here, but when we come back, we're going to talk about shingles. So don't go away. It's Wisconsin Doctors here on Channel 57. Welcome back to Wisconsin Doctors. We've been talking shots today. We've been talking immunization here at Mile Bluff Medical Center. And let's talk a little bit about shingles because, this is something that if you've had the chickenpox virus, as I understand it anyway, you are susceptible to. And it can be a really debilitating thing to have happen to anybody. So Dr. Redant, can you explain what the illness is? What is shingles? Where does it come from? And what do the vaccinations protect people from?
Well, shingles is caused by varicella virus. It's the same virus that causes chickenpox. You never quite clear the infection. It tends to hide in dorsal roots of nerves. And it's typically at a time of advancing age as the immune system becomes less efficient, or let's say somebody becomes ill, malnourished for some reason, that the virus will have its chance to reestablish. It typically establishes as a painful, blistered rash in the nerve root distribution in which the virus has been dormant. It can be particularly notable if it involves the ophthalmic nerve branch of the eye, where involvement of the cornea, the clear surface of the eye, can result in permanent blindness.
Wow.
Yeah, and you can also have difficulty with what's called post-herpetic neuralgia. So even after the rash clears after a couple of weeks, the pain in the nerve root can persist. It can persist for weeks, months. I've even seen it last for years.
Wow.
Neuropathic pain is particularly difficult to treat.
Right.
So it's really a condition that can change your life.
Yeah, not for the better either, it sounds like. So get the immunization and avoid all of that. So Craig, when do people need to be getting their immunization for shingles? Who and when, I should say?
Well, there's a clear recommendation for people to get it after age 60.
Okay.
Because somewhere thereafter your immune system starts to wane and you need the support. But as Dr. Redant was talking about, if you get get a situation where your immune system is compromised, you are susceptible. So with a doctor's recommendation, we can actually give it before 60 for that person that might be more susceptible to it. But in general, 60 years and up, we recommend it.
Yeah, okay, good advice there. And Nick, obviously we talked a little bit about the benefits, but can you expand a little bit on about what you feel the benefits are of getting this vaccine?
It reduces your risk by 50% or so from developing shingles.
Right.
So that's a pretty good reduction.
Yeah, I'd say.
And as Dr. Redant touched on, the actual rash part can last 2 weeks up to a month, and the pain from it, the postherpetic neuralgia pain, can be a very long time.
Right.
So you're trying to prevent that. And anytime that you have those open source to people around you are at risk for picking it up, and if they've never had chickenpox or shingles, then you can infect them, so you're also protecting people around you.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to note is you're protecting people around you by getting those vaccinations.
Yeah, I think it's important. This is not rare.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have the good fortune of living to be 80 years of age, your risk of getting shingles or herpes zoster is 1 in 3. It's pretty common.
That's pretty common. So how often does somebody need to receive this vaccination? Are there booster shots?
No, just a one-time immunization is the current recommendation. One should also say that these immunization schedules can change over time, depending on ongoing experience.
Sure, absolutely. We're out of time already. Can't believe it. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank all of my guests, Dr. Leon Redant, Craig Griffiths, and Nick Hewitt. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot.
That's all the time we have for Wisconsin Doctors. From all of us here at Bluff Medical Center and Channel 57, we invite you to live longer, live better. We'll see you next time.